That's been a journey, but goddamn anime has exploded over the last 2 decades. Now with Hollywood more in love with reboots and sequels than ever, it's no surprise to see them also dipping in the good old Japanimation well, whether fans want them to or not. 1995's Ghost in the Shell is one of the most critically acclaimed anime films and manga and TV shows of all time. And thanks to syndication of the TV series on Adult Swim in the mid-aughts, it happens to be a series that people all over the world are familiar with. But before the anime and the Scarlett Johansson movie, North America was blessed with 1997's Ghost in the Shell for the PS1. Featuring fully animated cutscenes voiced by the original cast, this game is also notable because it was developed by Exact, whose previous games were the PlayStation 1 3D trailblazing Jumping Flash games. We've already made a full video detailing what makes Jumping Flash so revolutionary and amazing for its time, so we'll leave it at this. Ghost in the Shell is essentially the real Jumping Flash 3. That alone should be enough for a recommendation, but this game is so much more. Ghost in the Shell has got to be one of the most overlooked action games of all time. Adding that it is a licensed game, something that usually predicts poor quality, only makes it more impressive. Non-anime fans might be skeptical, but by the first time you drop a string of homing missiles on a group of enemies as you circle strafe up a wall, you'll be saying, holy shit, where has this game been all my life? Straight away, Ghost in the Shell just feels good. Trust me, it feels as good as it looks. While the rest of the industry at the time was struggling with movement, camera control, and frame rate in the third dimension, Exact once again made it look like no problem at all. The L and R buttons launch you into a speedy strafe, and pushing both sends you into a sprint. Most any wall can be climbed by simply jumping at it, and from there you can dash your way to the ceiling or a safer vantage point. Circle strafing feels amazing. The team went from misunderstanding the importance of strafing in Jumping Flash to absolutely nailing it in Ghost in the Shell. Camera stays pretty tight on your little robo-tank. It isn't too difficult to keep your bearings. Wall and ceiling climbing can of course be a little disorienting, but the radar and compass help keep you straight. Or if you want, just hit select and play the whole game in first person. It's really a minor miracle this thing doesn't make me sick. The quick movement works in tandem with a generous auto-aim and lock-on targeting. When it comes to dispatching enemies, Ghost in the Shell doesn't sweat the small stuff. It wants you to be moving fast. Your machine gun has a pretty generous auto-aim for enemies generally in front of you, and your missiles will lock onto anything in your 180 field of vision. Your machine gun has a nice hefty brat sound, but is actually pretty weak. You're encouraged to stick with your missiles. That's not a problem though. Firing off a string of missiles and destroying a small group of enemies is always a visceral and satisfying spectacle. Good action games need to make you feel like a badass, like a force to be reckoned with, and Ghost in the Shell excels in this category. Bosses love to throw down sweeping lasers, and finding creative, flashy ways to avoid them is so much fun. And a couple things to watch out for. You need to be pretty close to enemies to lock onto them, and taking a hit will cancel your missile charge. Canceling your charge could have been telegraphed a little better. It's easy to lose the charge up sound in the heat of combat and be too focused on circle strafing and wall climbing to notice your meter at the bottom has reset. Constantly I found myself zigzagging like a madman, wondering, why isn't everything blowing up around me? In those instances, you can make up for lost time by dropping a devastating grenade, which usually dusts everything it touches. The bigger problem is this. These 3 attacks, the machine gun, the homing missile, and the grenades, are your entire arsenal. Combat is incredibly fun, but there's not much to it. Thankfully, your objective is constantly shifting throughout the campaign. There are about 4 kinds of levels, but they space out the scenarios and switch up the scenery enough to keep things from feeling repetitive. Enemies lack variety a bit too. It's basically a lot of tanks, turrets, and mechs, but Exact made the designs pretty cool, and you're usually moving too quickly to really notice them anyway. The game is rather short, but I can't say I was left feeling unsatisfied or that it overstayed its welcome. The camera is very good given the time and hardware, but does occasionally push into an almost first-person perspective as you approach a corner, and this can throw off your bearings. Still, no matter how chaotic things get, the frame rate is pretty rock solid, an incredible achievement. A lot of good-looking PS1 and N64 games suffered from terrible frame rates. It is not the case for Ghost in the Shell, though it does come at the cost of some graphical detail and color variety. The color palette is lackluster and ugly, though it does attempt to match the aesthetic of the movie, which is full of muted grays, greens, and blues. But for games with this level of innovative gameplay, aesthetic sacrifices are often required in order to achieve its greater vision. F-Zero X comes to mind. Amazing racing game, blisteringly fast, renders dozens of racers on screen with no problem, but tracks don't have a whole lot of visual flair, and the backgrounds are basically non-existent. Another example is Neversoft's Spider-Man for the PS1. The game's tight web slinging and wall crawling came at a price. These games make the right compromises. A solid frame rate and tight gameplay beat graphical fidelity. Like the anime it's based on, the game is stylish as hell. Thanks to its 90s techno soundtrack, the whole game feels like I'm either the star of a Paul Oakenfold music video, or I'm about to hit the club with my Fuchikoma to become the greatest wingman of all time. The anime cutscenes in between levels really shine. They're well animated, looking straight from the studio responsible for the film, and feature the English cast, though they are heavily compressed and low quality, and don't always feel connected to the actual game. One mission ends with a giant reactor on the verge of a Chernobyl-level disaster, but the following mission isn't a race against the clock to escape or shut down the reactor, just a standard jaunt through a sprawling building, culminating in a fight with 2 Gundams. The story was apparently written by series creator Masamune Shido, but it's overall lackluster and made me feel like I was playing a Ghost in the Shell theme park ride. You are a faceless male rookie, not Kusanagi, who the team learns to trust as you progress through the game. It's standard procedural fare, never touching on any of the things the series is famous for, like the nature of humanity, existentialism, all that stuff. It definitely doesn't tie into the amazing yet highly erotic intro featuring a brief moment of naked Kusanagi. Either way, the animation beats stilted CG or full motion video, and the voice acting is pretty incredible for the time.
The new rookies gave me all these funny little stickers.
Take them off, you moron.
It's easy to point at a game like Ghost in the Shell and say the reason it went overlooked was because it was ahead of its time, but I don't think that's exactly fair. While no doubt this game would have looked better on, say, a PS2 instead of a PS1, remember these are the jumping flash people who truly understood the hardware. You could have maybe made a game like this on a PS2, GameCube, or Xbox, but not before spending a couple years testing the limits of what the machine could handle. This game was made for the PlayStation 1. Now, the real reason it was ahead of its time was because it's anime. People probably saw it and went, "What? Anime? What?" It was a tougher sell back in the late 90s, even with the cover of the first official PlayStation magazine and a spot on the second and third demo discs. This is actually one of only 4 Ghost in the Shell games. 2 others were Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex for the PS2 and PSP. They have the exact same name, but they are in fact completely different games. We have only played the PS2 game, and it's also pretty good. It's a fairly standard third-person character action game with some really neat hooks. Wall jumping, enemy hacking, bullet dodging, there's some cool stuff here. Plus, you get to play as Kusanagi, which is probably good news for fans, and you get to ride a Tachikoma eventually too. And I guess a Tachikoma is different from the thing you ride in this game. I don't know. The controls are a bit loose, especially the movement and jumping. Fans should definitely check this out, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily essential for the non-fans. But I did like it better than Piano 3 and Oni, and their standalone complex First Assault Online, an MMO that's been in open beta for about a year now. It looks like they've been making some moves lately, riding hype from the Scarlett Johansson movie. Fans should probably check this out if they haven't already. But listen, you know anime is not our thing. We wouldn't devote an entire video to a game based on an anime unless it was really good. And friends, I'm telling you, if you love action, you need to have Ghost in the Shell in your life. There are definitely more expensive PS1 games out there, so get yourself a copy now, and hey, scoop up a copy of Jumping Flash while you're out there too. And give thanks to one of the most underrated pioneers of early 3D gaming, Exact. Thank you so much for watching. Stop Skeletons from Fighting is a Patreon-supported show and wouldn't be possible without the generosity of all these fine people here. If you'd like to support the show, click the link and donate what you can, or like, subscribe, and say something nice in the comments below. Our previous video was a history of the Marvel vs. Capcom fighting game series, and look out for our next video, Punching Weight Episode 13, video game downloads before the internet. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.